Hey, Honesties. Welcome back to another episode of Honestly, the podcast where I keep it raw, I keep it real, and I keep it risky. I'm your host, Zena, aka Top Tier Z. And before you do anything else, make sure you subscribe. And if you're feeling this video, like it and share it. And maybe leave a comment before you go on to the next. Today's guest has graced the pages of Maxim, Sports Illustrated, Playboy. She is a pilot. She's an advocate for sex workers' rights. She is Amy Taylor. Welcome, Amy.
It's so good to see you.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. I'm going to get into my fast five of would you rather this or that. And it's just a way so that the audience can get to know you better, and so can I. Okay, so my first one is, would you rather eat whatever you like and be healthy or sleep for 1 hour a day and feel fully rested?
Oh, that's so tough. They'd both be so great.
I know.
New York City being like hustle culture that it is, I might go for the less sleep thing.
I agree.
I could eat healthy if I had to. I hate it. I've done it a lot for modeling. It's never fun, folks. But the sleep, I can't go without sleep. It's been a big problem my whole life. And so I would take the being able to not sleep. You too?
I would do that too, yeah. Plus it gives me like more hours in a day to get things done.
Sure.
Like, why do I need to sleep for 8 hours?
So what would you do with your time? Just have fun or work more?
No,
or both?
work more. Like, I work a 9 to 5. So, I get more time to be a mom. I get more time to work on this podcast, work on other ideas and, business ventures that I would like to explore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be
I
nice.
do.
Like, I would enjoy not caring about time zones. Like if I didn't have to sleep.
Oh,
Like
that's
when I'm on the West Coast and like brutal, the
like
time
no
change.
jet lag.
Yeah, I'd be fine.
all.
That'd be awesome.
I like that answer. Would you rather cook at home or eat out?
Oh, eat out. I mean, this is New York City. Like I did all the COVID cooking at home. Like I did all that home I lived in COVID had a great kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
A good time to be there. Enjoyed it. Right now, terrible kitchen, Manhattan apartment. My kitchen is rubbish. But we have this amazing selection of restaurants. I mean, the best in the world are all here. So for sure, I'd eat out. You?
I like to cook at home.
You do? Lovely.
Yeah, I do.
What's your go-to like best dish? You're gonna make something, you gotta impress like somebody.
That is hard. People always ask me that, and I'm gonna go with something my daughter always asks me for. She loves fried mushrooms with sweet mashed potatoes and string beans on the side.
Dude, that sounds so good.
And she's always like, "Mommy, make me fried mushrooms." So I'm gonna go with that, or like curry chickpeas.
Yeah.
Like with the roti on the side. I'm
Healthy.
from the Caribbean, so like, yeah.
Yeah, and good.
And it's delicious. But I do like just like cooking with intention. It's very therapeutic to me because what I realize is sometimes when I eat out a lot, I tend to I'll be in a mood and I can't pinpoint why, right?
Mhm.
And when I think about it, there's an exchange of energy.
Yeah.
So if the person who's making my food isn't happy doing it, then that energy transfers, right, into the food and then it affects my mood.
Sure.
So I feel like when I cook at home, I'm more in control of like my mood, my intentions for the food and all these things. But I don't like to cook.
No?
No.
I think food is love. Like my favorite meals are still my mother's cooking. She is a good cook. Is it the world's best? Technically, probably not. But the love, to your point, you can really feel the love in food.
Yeah.
Do you have a proper kitchen? My kitchen has these
do.
convection tops that you need the magnet bottom pot. They suck. And like you cook a gentle sauce like a melted chocolate or a piece of fish and it burns everything. It heats up too fast.
Oh, no, I don't
They're-
like those.
yeah.
Is it electric?
No, it's convection. It's not electric and it's not gas. It's magnets.
Oh.
And they're newer and I hate them. So
Yeah, I don't have that.
lucky.
I have gas. I live in a
Oh,
condo. We
you have
own it.
gas?
So yeah. So we have a nice kitchen, enough space, countertop space.
Oh.
Like to me, that's the most important.
Yeah.
Like the space to spread out
You got to get messy and then
clean
get
up.
it done.
Yeah.
And gas is so much gentler for cooking like fragile things or
Mhm.
slow.
Because you have more control
Yep.
over the temperature. Yeah, look at us. We
Cooking.
cook.
Yeah. Cook people. It's really calming too. Like
It's why I said it's therapeutic.
yeah.
I think I don't like tedious meals. Like if I make lasagna, right?
Mhm.
It just requires so much attention.
Yeah.
That's what I don't like. I always say if I make you lasagna, that means I love you.
Oh.
Because
Take note, guys, or whoever.
If you're not getting my lasagna, I don't
Risotto,
love
you can't even leave the stove. You have to like
keep stirring.
yeah, or you get or grits or cream of wheat. Otherwise
those
you get
things
the lumps.
require too much time and attention.
It's a whole
that we
vibe.
don't have sometimes. Would you rather have perfect skin or perfect body?
Perfect body. I can wear makeup and I got those filters, but perfect body.
You crack me up.
Yeah.
I'm the opposite. I need
Really?
perfect skin. Yeah.
Look, I already has the. You don't get a vote. Look at you.
No, it's not perfect. Like
I
I
mean-
always say, like my most vain wish is for like a baby skin, just like smooth, soft,
It is.
no blemishes.
I'm here, folks. It is. I'm not hitting on you. Don't worry. But like, it is. Like,
You're far too kind.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean-
your body's banging. Like, let's be
you
serious.
know, I've had a little work done, and I'm going to continue to. I'm raging against the dying of the light, and I have no shame. I fully intend on fighting it every step of the way. So, not sorry.
That's real. Thank you for your
I
honesty.
mean, why wouldn't you?
Appreciate that. Exactly, right? You got to be proud of what you do.
Yeah.
Would you rather be cheated on emotionally or physically?
Oof.
I mean, ideally none.
Having had both happen to me, and they're both hideous. Oof. The physical is a logistics problem. You get worried about, disease, right?
Mhm.
So that person's out because I'm simply not going to risk my health.
Mhm.
It's not fair. They took away my consent. I didn't agree to it. No judgment. Open relationships. I have lots of friends who do that. Totally cool. But if with no consent, that's not fair. If I didn't agree to it, we're done. Emotionally, maybe I would take that and I would want to understand the extent and why. If I haven't been paying attention, then maybe there's a chance I can undo that or we can reach something. The problem for me of physical is simply that I'm not going to catch a disease. We're done. I'm not going back ever again. So what would end it immediately and permanently with no second thought, lights out, would be physical. Emotionally, I'm not going to be happy, but I think there may be a chance. Probably not, though. We're probably done both ways, honestly.
Because I can't make any promises.
I mean, there's 4 billion men out there. I'm probably just going to move on.
I think you're the first woman that I've heard answer that question like that.
Really?
Yeah, like I included, I'm always like physical. Like,
Yeah.
I would hope if you would do that, you would at least use protection. Like, it's a hope. Otherwise, you're just
But
dirty.
that doesn't make it zero risk. It just
No,
makes it
doesn't.
less. So
yeah, that is true.
yeah.
I think for me, the emotional aspects, I'm kind of like, now there's like a deeper connection. Like, there's the chance that you can fall in love with this person. And to me, that's more of a competition than physically.
Yeah, they're both terrible. The emotional, I'd want to understand, like if they're super emotionally connected to some AI on OnlyFans that they're never going to meet, it could be emotional for them, but there's no shot. So maybe we have a chance and he needs therapy, whatever. If it's emotional with like his coworker or my friends, then that's a much bigger problem.
Well, yeah. So when I pose the question, it's like a real person.
Somebody
like,
you actually know?
Yeah, like
Oof.
there's interaction, right? Because with like an AI OnlyFans person or just like an OnlyFans person, like the probability of you actually like meeting that person and connecting on a deeper level of intimacy,
Right.
probably zero.
It's not emotional on their side. I guess if you're saying it is on both sides, like this other person, in my case, I'm straight, so it'd be another woman in love with the man that I'm with. I don't chase my liquor, and I'm not going to chase a man. So if she wants him, all yours, babe.
Have him.
You can have each other. If you're in love, Godspeed.
Count me out.
Well, I'm not going to compete for that. No,
Yeah.
thanks. It would be too demeaning to me to beg. And
Mhm.
but if somebody falls out of love with me and wants somebody else, then I have some culpability in that, and maybe I wasn't the right person.
Yeah,
And while
that's
it
understandable.
hurts, I've been there. I've been dumped. It sucks. It's a great diet. You always lose weight, but then eventually, I would hope I could forgive because. Do you really want somebody who doesn't want you? I think
No.
you have to let them go, as much as that hurts the ego.
Mhm.
If they want someone else, they should be with
Able-
somebody
yeah.
else.
I think we always forget we're not here to possess people. We're only
Mhm.
here to experience them. So
We're jealous creatures, though, man. I've been in love, and man, it makes you crazy.
yeah, no, it does. Trust me, I know. I'm
And
still crazy right now.
are you? I'm sorry. No one likes being abandoned. I mean, I wish God or whoever, when one person fell out of love, I wish the other one did too. It would be so
Yeah.
much easier than this one way thing where you still want them and they don't want you anymore, or vice versa.
Mhm. Very rarely is it both.
No.
And
And it's so painful.
yeah.
I don't know what it's not good. It's not a good system. Like
She's
I
like,
don't know.
just give me neither. Like, I don't want to be cheated on at all. How about that? Like,
No, it's
no.
and yet I have lots of friends who are non-monogamous and they're in open things, and the key of course is consent. I have
Mhm.
other friends who are lying and there's no
Honesty.
consent. That's definitely not as great. Um I've met people who they can really love somebody and they want to sleep with other people.
Mhm.
I think all things exist, and that is
That is
hard
true.
because we don't always agree. Oh, it can change too,
Yeah.
which is even worse, right? You can want one thing for 25 years and then you
And then
change.
instantly just something else.
Oof.
That's human nature.
The
My
worst.
final question.
Okay.
In the bedroom, would you rather be submissive or would you rather be dominant?
Well, so TMI. Nice to meet y'all. I'm a switch. I like both. I've done a lot of things. I've done a lot of both. I'm over 40 now, so I tend to look like or seem like more of a dominatrix. I'm older. The trope is, the young thing is submissive, the older woman's more dominant. That's what people tend to assume. It's not always true at all.
Mhm.
I think being dominant is a big responsibility.
Yeah.
You have to be skilled. You have to have a big repertoire. It's kind of mentally exhausting. You got to do everything. You're responsible for the gift of this person trusting you.
Mhm.
And I've been to dungeons and seen the real pros. It's a skill set for sure. And submission is sort of easier. You can, when Nikki Glaser, the comedian, she's like, ladies, you're going to love being submissive because you can tell your husband, well, I would love to do stuff to you, but I just can't because I'm the submissive. I'd love to give you a blowjob, but I'm tied up. Sorry. Jokes aside, being submissive is certainly less work. But you are actually the one with all the power because you set the limits. In any relationship with consent, they can't do to you what you do
What
not
you do
permit
not-
them to
yeah.
do.
Mhm.
So I think if I had to pick one forever, I'd probably pick submissive so I could just chill.
Yeah.
I think I would.
I
You?
think so too. Yeah, definitely submissive.
You want to do all the
Like,
work?
No, I do not like to work. Just in case anyone was wondering.
Hashtag let me starfish.
No, definitely not starfish.
Don't make me get on top.
Definitely not,
It's a
but
quad workout, man. It's a lot.
literally, like I remember for a long time, I would just be like, "Well, sex is my workout," because I did not like working out for a very long time.
Yeah?
Yeah, because
That's
it's
a
like I
lot.
don't see why I need to go to the gym when I can just do this.
Oh, yeah.
But,
Just wait till you hit your 40s. You're like, my neck. None of that feels good.
no, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I would definitely be submissive.
Yeah, that's
Dominant
fair.
is just too much work.
I think a lot of men feel like they have to perform and have to do it all.
Mhm.
And sometimes they do want to just relax and
Yeah.
receive pleasure.
Yeah.
I think it's very normal for both people to want to.
And I've been there. That's why I think Switch is the best.
Mhm.
Like, ideally, because you can choose, you and your partner can choose, okay, maybe tonight I need to be submissive as
Yeah,
a man. You
for
know
sure.
what I'm saying? And so as a woman, it's you take control, you take charge, right? Like, exactly what you say. It's not all the time that they're going to want to be the ones in charge. Maybe egotistically, they might think they want to be in charge all
Yeah.
the time, but no.
Well, and submission requires trust. I mean, amazingly, I've been, not in New York, but I've been to dungeons where they have professional submissives, which boggles my mind, frankly. I mean, they have security and there's cameras. You can't mess around. It's,
Mhm.
and there's no sex. That's what makes it legal. But these are people who can be submissive to like a customer who's a stranger.
Yeah.
I'll admit I don't understand that because my submission requires deep trust, which requires some kind of established relationship.
Mhm.
And I think for most people, it does.
I think so too.
Yeah, I can't just do that with a first date. That's like slow down.
Can you
Yeah.
imagine? Like,
Too much, too soon. We're good.
there's the application.
Yeah, just,
Before we even meet. Well, thank you for participating in my Fast Five. Your responses were very Transparent, very open, which I like. Very honest.
Easy.
Welcome to honesty, though.
I once, that's a long time ago, I had sex with a guy who was trying to be very dominant, but he was super duper short.
So how
Great
do you
guy,
take
super
it
smart,
seriously?
successful, brilliant, but like really like glue stick height. And I just couldn't take him seriously as a dominatrix. I'm so sorry. It just didn't like, I was like, I could probably like pick you up and toss you. And it's so weird that you want to be like, but God love him. He's married now. He's fine.
And hopefully he's happy.
I mean, I think about this woman is like, I mean, maybe she's even tinier than him, but it kind of made me laugh because it was like a little boy
Wait,
trying
how
to be
tall
all.
was he? I need to know. How tall are you?
I'm 5'6", barefoot. And he was about 5'6", 5'7".
Okay.
Super smart, but
Mhm.
for sure short and slim and just a tiny little dude.
Like, yeah, it's not like a manly, like.
Yeah, it just didn't like. I was like, you're gonna be all like tough, and it just didn't.
I can't
match.
take you seriously.
Right?
No.
When I could like probably beat your ass if I had to. Like, sorry, not that I would have. Anyway, ancient history.
I want to get into you and sex work because, during our screening, you were very vocal about how important it is for you to advocate for the safety of self workers, decriminalize sex work, and destigmatizes as well, right?
Thanks.
I remember you sharing you dated high men with a lot of money who funded this lifestyle of yours. How would you say that's different from being a sex worker?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not sure it totally is. I think there's a spectrum. The joke, of course, is that marriage is sex work because you sleep with your husband. And back in the day, you're younger than me, but most women, within my generation, women couldn't get a credit card or a home loan without a male cosigner.
Mm-hmm.
Women having their own money and careers is a very recent phenomenon, and it's very rare in the world. When I was young, women had very low paying jobs, secretary, teacher. They didn't pay enough to survive. You still had to marry a man, or you lived with your parents forever in poverty. And now this phenomenon of women being wealthy, it's like 25 years old, maybe, and it's only in like New York and some other rare places in the world. And it's wonderful. It's changing society in huge ways.
Yeah.
But it's very new. So anyway, men's success and ability to provide was a basic characteristic of what women looked for, and most in the world still do.
Yeah.
So it was pretty normal to,
Hypergamy.
Well, yeah, women wanted a man to provide for you and your offspring if you had them, or even you and yourself because you didn't have your own money.
Yeah.
And, beauty ain't cheap.
No.
Or just living ain't cheap. Food
I
ain't.
just don't like to spend my own money.
Well, honest, neither do I. And I couldn't. I was not rich. I didn't have rich parents. And men wanted women's beauty and youth. They are not ashamed of that. And yes, I dated wealthy men. I liked them. I also liked their brilliance and their power. It's what I'm attracted to anyway, and they like me.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very natural. My very first boyfriend was quite wealthy, and he paid for everything because I was a college student.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to go to Tahiti. I couldn't pay for it.
Yeah.
I couldn't even pay for the clothes to go for a week. So he would say, of course, you go shopping and we go on vacation. And I could have either dated him or some frat guy who wouldn't even pay for my lunch. I mean, who the fuck would you pick?
Yeah.
And he
the
was
wealthy
nice.
Guy.
Well, and I did love him. He wasn't this fantasy people have that these wealthy men are sort of mean to you. Well, that's cope. Nobody I dated ever was. I wouldn't have tolerated that. Nor should anybody. That said, sex work, all the way from, marriage and full commitment, wrapped up in the laws and the respect of society, through, side pieces, gold diggers. We have lots of that. You see it in New York at every fancy restaurant every night, and fine, whatever. All the way to like something street-based and trafficked, and something that is very full of pain and abuse and negativity.
Yeah.
All of that is called sex work, and it's very different. Online stuff, OnlyFans, strippers, porn, dominatrixes, all of that is under the umbrella of sex work, a term that was coined in the 70s to try to bind together and help get legal rights for anyone engaged in trading sort of their sexuality for survival, is a term that encompasses a lot of different people and a lot of different lifestyles. And I think if you were to say that the way I lived would be at the very, very privileged end of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I would not have dated them if they were not generous. They would not have dated me if I wasn't beautiful. However,
one had something the other wanted, right?
Clear.
They want beauty, you want a lifestyle.
But my relationships they all claimed to love me. Maybe they were lying, but no more so than anybody you meet on Hinge or Tinder, I guess.
Yeah.
They said they did. Some still do after breakups years ago. I think I loved them. But yes, I think sometimes relationships can include a little bit of transactionality, but that doesn't make them necessarily totally unethical and evil. I think it's a matter of degree.
I completely agree. Because when I thought about it, when I hear like just dating wealthy men who fund the lifestyle, it kind of takes me back to the first word I think about is like being an escort, right?
Mhm.
Because I would sit at these bars, or I'll like be dining at dinner, and I'll see these women who are at the bars by themselves, and you can tell like they're waiting to be picked up, right? Which is also sex work, I suppose. But I don't think I thought about it in the sense of like actually being in love and being in a relationship. I thought it was just mostly transactional, right?
Yes.
Where and physical, you give me this, I give you that. I didn't think about the emotional aspect of it. And I do agree that end of what you experience is like the more privileged side of quote unquote sex work. And I don't know if a lot of people would. I think when I hear this conversation amongst like men, they consider it all to be sex work. But I don't know if the women who are in who are experiencing this would consider it to be the same. And
some of them don't want to. I've known porn stars who have a husband and a kid at home. They need some extra cash. They'll go have some fun or whatever happens for an hour or two and then go home. And they're not really looking to have a lot of emotionality. I think the law regards that differently in different places. I don't think it's always harmful to anybody. It's if there's consent and nobody's being abused, I don't really think it's that big of a deal. Personally, but I'm pretty liberal and sex positive. I understand that a lot of people disagree with me. I think some people think that sex or anything sexual should only be in a monogamous couple for the production of children and family. And they sort of hate lap dancing at strip clubs or OnlyFans or any of that. I don't think life's a level playing field. I think sometimes people need sexual content and it's not contact or affection or touch and they're not always able to get that so easily. Some women that are engaged in sex work, it's one of the very few careers that has zero barrier to entry. You don't need a degree or any skills. A lot of them
you need a lot of skills.
Well, you're right. You're right. I'm totally wrong. You do, but you don't need a formal degree.
Yeah.
You're right. Their people skills are spectacular.
Yeah.
And look, I know retired sex workers who are married to their clients. They've been married for years. Some have children, some don't. I know thousands of retired escorts. Some are major business women that you guys know. And yes, they sort of don't talk about their past, but yeah, I think like many things, it's complex, right?
Yeah.
And when it's viewed through the lens of all of it being terrible and abusive, all that does is shove things further underground and harms the people in it. And that's, I think, unnecessary and it's not helpful.
No. It's funny you say like there's people who won't even go to a strip club or, that's for a while. I kind of was one of those people and I have nothing against like strippers or anything like that, but I've done it in the past and it was just not something that like I drew to, and I've had conversations. I've had strippers on the show where I'm like, okay, they are just people trying to make a lifestyle. And so frequently they're like, they're destigmatized, they're kind of like degraded for that, kind of treated as less than, and it's having these conversations kind of humanizes them, not just for me, but also for the masses as well. Right. And I do want to ask you, what are some risks or some like dangers of being in this line of work as the woman?
Yeah.
Can you like...
So if you're watching this and you're thinking about sex work, honestly, even if you survive it, like I sort of did and other people she's met have, choose something else, get some tech skills. And honestly, it's too hard because society makes it too hard and the work can be hard and the risk of potential damage, even if rare, just choose. I do not advise you to do it. That said, I realize people always will and I would like it safer, but honestly, choose something else. That said, yes, the amplitude between the good nights and the bad nights is too big. Any stripper will tell you there's nights you make thousands of dollars, and there's nights you're worried about your life.
Yeah.
And that's not great, right? I mean, I agree with you about strip clubs. I find them kind of sad. That said, other people like them, so I'm not looking to outlaw them. It's not for me. I don't find it sexy at all.
Same.
But many people do.
Yeah.
And
Teach his own.
the saddest one to me is the Hooters place. I find it very weird. They're not strippers. And there's guys who are in there like bringing their laptop and sitting all day with their chicken wings so they can be around hot chicks. And it's just.
I think it's more so sad on the man's part than it is the
I know
worker's part.
totally.
Like,
the girls are just working fine.
Exactly.
That's great. Make a living.
This is a uniform.
Yeah.
You know?
But that said, so when I first was like online, I'm trying to like be a little bit gold diggery and meet somebody who's going to help me with grad school because I'm broke and young and hot. I did get bothered by a pimp. You can Google it. It's David Elms was his name now. He uses the name David Nguyen now, tries to hide from his past. He ran a site called The Erotic Review, and he wanted me to have sex with men for money, which I was not going to agree to. That's too reductionist. I'm not interested in somebody saying, I'll give you this money. What kind of parts of your body can I have? No judgment to people who want to do that, but I need it wrapped up in love and a relationship. I'm lame that way. Sorry. But he wanted me to do that. And then what would happen was the men who paid me for sex would write reviews on his website. He would charge other people to read those, and he would make money. So sort of an indirect pimp. I'm part Italian. I'm a little feisty. I told him to go to hell, which turned out to be a very bad idea because I didn't know who he was. He was just emailing me and bugging me. He said he wanted to chat about business. I idiotically gave him my phone number because I didn't know who it even was. You're just young and stupid and you trust people.
Can I ask how old were you?
I was almost 30 when he started bothering me. So over a decade and a half ago. And unfortunately, my bad luck, he lived in Los Angeles and so did I. So he got more and more interested in wanting to meet me and sleep with me. And I was not going to do that and to make money off me in a way that I refused. So year after year goes by, I didn't think about this person. His site gets very successful running this illegal empire. And he eventually got so mad at me for refusing to be part of it that he bought my birth name.com.
Wow.
And
that is
he
excessive.
doxed me to the world. I lost my job. My parents didn't speak to me for 3 years. I lost my boyfriend at the time. I had found somebody and was going to shut it all down. I was still running a pay site to make a little extra money, but he and this guy and I were going to move to Seattle and get married, and all that fell apart. He panicked and dumped me because he was too scared of all this. And the worst part is I lost my unborn child. I was pregnant. I had a 17-week-old son that I hope I meet someday. And I had a miscarriage. And then I was consumed with getting justice.
What happened?
Well, after losing my job and my boyfriend, my family, and my kid, or what would have been my kid, I moved to Arizona. I was flying already. I like to fly planes. So I was flying planes. So I decided to go to Arizona, live in the pilot apartment because this guy had my address, right? So I kept that home, but wasn't there. I just flew every day. What else are you going to do when you've got nothing but trauma?
Yeah, that's true. And that is a good way to like take your mind.
Yeah.
You're literally in a whole different sphere.
It's what I did. I flew every day. I got my instructor licenses, my multi-engine, a bunch of stuff, a bunch of tickets. And I sued him. And it took me a long time. 4 judges threw it out saying that I was a garbage person and who cares what happens to me. But I sued him because I had to get this website that he built down because it was ruining my life, right? And the only way you can get stuff down is to go after the owner. So we did that. We won. Turns out he was a crack cocaine addict. He never even showed up in court. So if you sue somebody, sue a crack cocaine addict because you'll win. Because they don't show up for their court dates.
Wow. Oh, good to know.
So yeah, he still owes me money. I never cared about the money. I never collected the judgment. That's not what it was about. So when I won, he then drove to Phoenix on Valentine's Day of 2010 to try to murder me. The district attorney, Christy Bell, with my lawyers, luckily they saved my life. They got him. They intercepted him and he went to jail for years.
Nice.
And he's gotten clean and he's cleaned up his life, which I'm glad about. This man, he has a daughter.
Wow.
So he's changed his life and that's a very good thing. Luckily, he's left me alone. But long story short, these are the things that happen to you in sex work that I was so naive and trusting. I didn't see this coming. I didn't know I didn't come from the streets. I didn't know there were people like that. You see that stuff in movies, you're like, but unfortunately there are.
It's real life as well. I do want to ask you, have you forgiven him? Like, that is where it gets a little deep.
That's a very intuitive question. I wish the answer was yes. No, I have not. I don't know that I ever will. But I had a Russian friend in San Diego who, when this pimp was in prison, he's like, oh yeah, let's have him killed. It's the easiest place to have him killed. He's in prison. I was like, no. Like, this is not Russia. I'm not doing that.
This is definitely giving mob ties, and I love it.
I am not that kind of person. And the Russian guy was like, well, you're stupid. He's going to kill you. I was like, well, be that as it may. I hope he doesn't, and he hasn't, but I don't do things like that. So I did not have a Russian friend enlist to whatever. And this was a world that, yeah, there is organized crime in sex work. It's young people who are not very smart and easy to control, and there are really high margins. And because the world doesn't legitimize this business, just like drugs and gambling, you have organized crime. And it is my belief, even if you can't destigmatize, that if you could grant it legitimacy, it'd be a little better, like what you see in Australia and Europe, which is not problem-free.
What does that look like?
Well, Australia does the brothel thing. Certainly not great, but at least there's security.
Yeah.
They're paying their taxes. The psychological outcomes studies show that brothel workers have much more healthy psychological outcomes because they don't have to worry about the law.
Or their safety to some extent.
Much safer. Medical checks, and it's kind of an unspoken thing in Australia. If you have a husband that he could drive home from work and do this, it's not great for wives, but it's medically safer. It's physically safer. And it's not every state in Australia, province, whatever it's called, area, but it's some of them. I think where Sydney is, it's Europe, Germany does the same kind of thing. Everybody treats it differently. Belgium just let sex workers unionize.
Wow. They
can get benefits and healthcare. In this country, if you're a sex worker and you tell your primary GP that you're a sex worker, you will lose your insurance in America. So, because you're considered too risky, right? They'll cancel you.
Yeah.
So what happens? People lie. And then we get bad medical data. So yeah, men like David Elms there's thousands like him all over the world, and they get away with what they get away with. I mean, he was 2006. He was convicted of raping a woman. She was a sex worker, so she didn't want to really go after him in court, so he never served any time.
Yeah.
They get away with this stuff because the industry's underground, because we are unwilling to face that this is a part of our society.
And a lot of times, the women who experience these things, you kind of feel embarrassed, I suppose, right? Because it's one like, this is my job, quote unquote. You kind of, or some people are ashamed to even let others know, like, this is what they do for work.
Of course.
And then you kind of maybe blame yourself for these things happening to you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a trauma response.
Of course.
Right? So instead of holding the person who's done the harm to you accountable, you kind of internalize it, and it eats away at you until when?
Sure.
Like, usually there's no outlet. It's just, it becomes a psychological thing for you.
Sure. When society tells you that you're scum because of a choice you made, usually most people enter sex work when they're young and poor, or old and poor, but poor. It's a financial driver usually.
Yeah. And usually with an angle.
Typically, most people don't do it for very long to pay some bills and survive. Yeah, I think it is difficult to be told you're scum and hold your head high. That's true. And American culture can be spiteful.
Yeah.
It can be driven by a desire to punish and spite people who've made choices that we don't like. But my plea for people is, even if you hate sex workers, if you hate them and you hate their clients and you think they made a bad choice, which I understand that point of view. I don't think it's always the greatest industry, and I've seen it. You can't tell me you think these young poor people should just die because of a choice they made. If you think that, I don't know how to reason with you, because you have made questionable choices too. Every single one of us has. And so where's the compassion, Where's the forgiveness?
Yeah.
We're just going to let young people be trafficked and hurt because they chose this to pay their bills for a little while.
Mhm.
I don't want that.
You know, a lot of times the people who are like condemning it, it doesn't even affect them. They're like probably
Some of them like to hire them. I mean, they watch porn, they go to strip clubs, they hire hookers, they, and then they still think that they're scum.
You know, I actually retract that statement because I think I was thinking about it in the sense like I would assume a lot of women condemn sex work,
Oh,
right?
sure.
A lot of wives because maybe their husbands or boyfriends are participating in it, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, well, I don't like strippers or I don't like escorts because my man is with them, right? And I remember during screening, you made a very valid point where you said if there wasn't sex workers, men would still cheat. So I do want to pose the question
Yeah.
of who do you think or bothered more by sex workers or like
Well, this is a major ethical thing I wrestle with. Look, wives, you're taking away their consent, right? They didn't consent to an open relationship if the guy's lying, which is typically what's going on. And there's an increased disease risk to her, even if he's using condoms, it's not zero. And so you took away her consent. She didn't agree to this. In an open marriage where the wife's like, hey, go for it, that's a different matter.
Yeah.
But that's not always what's going on.
No.
So what about her rights? What about her right to be safer? And what about her right to have her husband telling her the truth of what he's up to? That's a problem for sure. However, the fantasy that if you could eradicate all forms of sex work and no porn, no OnlyFans, that she would have a husband who is totally monogamous, which would be great. We'd all love that. That's not reality.
Yeah.
He's gonna, as the coworker, you're gonna have to eradicate all other women, I guess.
Literally.
Or men, if that's what he's into, which does happen a lot. There's a lot of men who are secretly seeing trans and gay and keeping that in the closet, and that's a massive industry. So would it be great if we could force people to be monogamous when the other partner wants to? Sure, but that's not reality. So what do we do about it? It's difficult, right? I mean, I sometimes think that sex work is the third rail of marriage, that sometimes wives are able to live their life and the kid, and it's a sort of an outsourcing. Sometimes there's physical acts the wife doesn't want to do. She finds demeaning or painful.
Yeah.
The husband, would it be ideal if he simply would go without? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Some men will not. So should he get divorced? Should he leave his family? Would that be better? I don't know. Better for the kids? Better for the finances?
No.
Can we magically shut down his sex drive? Yeah, that'd be great, but we don't have that technology. So yes, these are complex questions, and people smarter than me have been unable to come up with solutions. You could search your whole life to find somebody you're perfectly sexually compatible with. It could then change, right? So long story short, I don't know. I think wives are fair to hate it. Of course, we're jealous creatures, as we talked about in the beginning.
We are, for sure. I'm gonna play devil's advocate. And this is not my stance at all. I just like playing devil's advocate just to like open up the conversation. If I were a wife who didn't want to indulge in like some act or something my husband enjoyed, right? I think if we've had this conversation prior to like getting married and like settling down and solidifying, okay, these are things he liked. Because sometimes we can say we're okay with something, and then as time progresses, it's like, no, I'm not okay with this, right? So as a wife, I could have maybe been 2 years ago, yeah, like choke me, slap me. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like kink me up, like
whatever you're into. I don't judge. That's cool. Don't yuck anyone else's yum, folks.
Kink me up, right? And so first 2 years we're doing it, and maybe after I have a child, like my hormones change or like the things I'm interested in change, right? I think as a wife, I would want to be understanding like that is something I know he required. So, this is a fine line because if there's an agreement, there's consent, right? And that's the word you keep on bringing up, I've noticed. Then I'll be okay with him maybe going out somewhere to find it. Yeah, I don't know.
It's hard, right?
It's a very fine line.
Yeah. So I've spoken with wives who say giving head is demeaning.
Really?
Well, it's a rare one, but if you believe giving head is demeaning, you've said your husband is going to go the next few decades with 0 blowjobs.
That's
Good.
illegal.
I mean,
I'm so sorry.
I feel like you. Good luck with that, lady. So you've just basically you can either let him find that elsewhere, or do you have the right to control his desire? Okay, your consent. No one should force you to give head. That's literally rape.
Mhm.
However, do you have the right to tell him he can never have that again? I've talked to some very radical feminists who say no man is entitled to any sex act. Well, that's a very nice fantasy, and you're right. You don't die without blowjobs.
No.
Nobody ever died. It's not water or food or air. However, I don't know that people are willing. So, right, it's hard. And also, desires can change. You may make those agreements when you settle down,
Mhm.
and then they may see something in a movie or they may read something and be like, I want to try that. And I don't want to die without having tried that.
Yeah.
Then
Well,
what?
Here's the solution. The light bulb just went off. Just I can just watch him do those things. Like
Sure.
that's a safer place, right? There's HIV and STD screenings beforehand. We're in the comfort of our environment. Like I can just watch you get blowjobs from this woman that we've chosen.
And a
We
sex
just
worker
watch
is
it.
not interested in stealing your husband.
Yeah, exactly. They're here
Better than an affair. If you got to choose, ideally what? Your husband and you would have the same sex drive forever. That'd be great. And I'm sure those lucky people who have that, lucky them.
Yeah.
That is not always what happens. And life, again, is not a level playing field. There are also sex workers see people who are disabled, who have no access to sexual partners, basically. They're not going to get a date on the apps.
Yeah. I never thought of that.
People who have social anxiety and don't do well dating. Should they have no physical contact forever?
No.
That's not only unfair, but that's dangerous to society. They can get pretty angry.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of sex workers say that's not fair. Sex workers aren't the garbage receptacle to take bad men. However,
but it's their choice.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, yes, like all things, it's very complicated. Whose rights come first? And it makes people uncomfortable to talk about, There's a lot of people out in the Hamptons who there's a lot of complicated things going on in their marriages. And if you're going to be married to somebody for decades and love them forever, you're going to go through a lot sexually and otherwise. After delivering babies, if you deliver vaginally, and you're in ice diapers for weeks.
Yeah. Well, not for weeks.
Yeah, you're right. Just a little while. Depends how,
like a couple.
Nice job bouncing back.
6.
Yeah, you're fine. I mean,
each experience is different.
Yeah, well, what about some husbands' radical prostatectomy, even with injectables or pumps or Viagra or Cialis, it doesn't come back. Does the wife have to be celibate for the next several decades? What about her needs? So they have, gigolos. That's a thing now. And as women get more money and power, that's like a thing that's happening. No. I don't know, like, I'll be dead, but is that going to be like a major business in the future with women being rich? Maybe.
Possibly. I think it's just a little hard to even like have a sense of what's going on because I feel like the people or the couples who are going through these things, they don't speak about it openly. So we're like kind of just left to kind of like maybe this is what's happening, form our own opinions per se.
Sure.
I do want to ask you, what effect do you think the decriminalization and
it's a mouthful.
destigmatization of sex work will have both on the sex workers and the people who indulge in them?
So decrim is what sex workers want. That differs from legalization in that they want, because legalization would create regulation requirements. Sex workers who make more money would be better able to comply with that. You'd then still have an underground economy of those who don't or can't comply. That's what's going on with weed now. You have a legal weed industry, and then you still have your underground plug because he's cheaper and more efficient than the guy who has to pay all his taxes and have a business. So, yeah, legalization, which is probably what the government is more likely to do because they want their pound of flesh. They want their taxes and their money. They never give rights without getting something.
No, that's
But
fair.
What sex workers would like and could maybe happen and does happen in some other places like New Zealand is decrim, where they just leave them alone. Just stop arresting them. Like teachers. That's decriminalized. You don't arrest teachers for anything, right?
Like, let them work in peace.
Yes. And so that would allow them to, so for instance, there's a great example in Calcutta, India. There's a very big brothel area in Calcutta. They decriminalized, and what happened was the sex workers weren't afraid to go to the police to report abuses anymore. They could report the trafficking of underage workers.
Nice.
They weren't afraid that when they told the cops that guy's selling 12-year-olds, that the cops would arrest them.
Mm-hmm.
So they were able to make many more arrests of abusive traffickers trafficking children.
Mm-hmm.
The HIV rate has gone down every single year because they're not afraid to carry condoms and demand safe sex.
Yeah.
When it's criminalized, what happens is clients say, take off the condom or I'm reporting you to the cops.
Okay.
Knowing the sex worker's terrified of arrest and will do whatever they say. In a decrim environment where she's not afraid of law enforcement, she'll say, no, it has to be safe.
Yeah.
So they've had great success in Calcutta with decrim. And you actually see that everywhere. New Zealand, everywhere it's decriminalized, you see less disease and better outcomes and literally people surviving better. The district attorneys in most major U.S. cities, including New York and Los Angeles, have effectively sort of said, we're not going to prosecute low-level prostitution cases anymore unless they include trafficking or other abuses. Because when it's two consenting adults, this is really not our highest priority.
Yeah.
So we're getting there.
Yeah.
And then I think destigmatization is far harder. That would be getting society to think of sex work as a normal part of the fabric of society. And I don't think we've ever seen that in all of human history.
No.
Even when it's been legal, ancient Rome tried this. Other societies have tried that. Nobody likes whores. So, yay. But maybe we could start with a legal fabric and then start to think of these people as human beings worthy of respect. It's a fantasy of mine that I don't know if we could ever achieve.
I think as a society, we will have to unlearn so much of what we've been taught about sex work and sex workers. I think with any type of stigmatization, Clarity Zena's struggling on this word today.
It's the worst word, right? They need a better one.
Just make it a little short and sweet. But I think with any type of destigmatization, it's a mindset. It's things that's been instilled in us, kind of like stereotypes, right? Like
Sure.
It's things you've heard growing up, and that's kind of passed down from generation to generation. And so to change that, you kind of have to undo all the learning and all the things we've been taught about these people in this line of work.
Sure.
Right? I don't know, maybe they're now contributing to taxes. Like, you get what I'm saying? To contribute to society. Maybe that will be more acceptable for some people, right? But when you think about it, it's kind of like, well, there's still other workers out there who are not paying taxes, who are working off the books.
Sure.
I definitely understand why destigmatizing is harder than decriminalization.
And there's a lot of work that isn't dignified, and nobody fantasizes about growing up and cleaning toilets, and yet we need that service. There's a lot of work that's kind of dirty. The guys...
Like no one wants to do that kind of work, and that's just the reality.
It's part of society. I think nobody fantasizes about working in a meat processing plant. That's not fun, but it's work. And sex is a special case. It makes people. That's really important. Yeah. And let's be honest, we've all made love to somebody we were deeply in love with, and we lost ourselves. And it's something spiritual. It's maybe the most beautiful thing we have.
It is.
And so that said, sports sex that's just for fun and is not that is okay too. Yeah. Is sex when you're in love and committed and monogamous? Yeah, it's better. Sure, it's better. We all know this. But, bad pizza is still pizza. And again, like I said, some people don't have access to that. And they still need touch. They have professional cuddlers like in Portland where there's no sex and they just touch people. Like, it's okay.
I think it's human nature to want companionship, to want to be touched. This question just came to my head because there are times I would joke about, like, I want a sugar daddy that I don't have to give sugar to. Like, I just want to talk to him, right? Like,
you probably could. You're brilliant.
Right? Oh, thank you. Thank you. Don't know if I think I've passed the age of their desire.
You'd be surprised.
I'm not in my 20s anymore. They'd be like, oh, she's on news. But
I know women in their 60s killing it.
Oh, maybe there's a market.
Sorry. Not telling you what to do.
No, I know. I do want to ask, now that I just thought about this, like, would that still be considered sex work if I'm just providing companionship but getting paid for it?
I mean, it depends on the client. Are they interested in you looking very sexy and being beautiful? Yeah, probably.
Probably, yeah.
You probably can't be ugly. That's usually a value-added thing. Although, I don't know. I mean, selling attention and intimacy is a thing. Like, AI is coming. People are going to have bots. And yeah, the bots will look hot, but it's like literally not even a person.
Yeah.
And I don't know that all customers care that it's not a real person. It's the attention and the fantasy. But typically, sex work includes sort of sexy feelings or sexy attention. It would be dirty talk. It would be sexy pictures or videos. However, there are clients in like very high-end escorting who there is no sex. You're a dinner and travel companion.
Yeah.
Completely platonic. That does exist.
Yeah.
Usually they're still interested in you being beautiful, elegant.
Which kind of ties it and frames it back.
Yeah. Would it be sex work? Maybe not, but attention work? I don't know what you would call it.
It's work.
Yeah, it is. You know, if you're good at it, never do it for free.
I do want to ask you more about your experience. You know, you've never been married. No. You say you like long relationships. You've been in a couple of long relationships yourself. And I remember you saying at 24, like after your undergrad degree, your boyfriend at the time wanted to marry you, and you kind of were like, no, I'm not ready for this. Too young for this. I think I grew up with the mindset that a lot of women want to be married young. Like after college, you know, most women are like 21, 22, realistically, right? And a lot of them in the ideal situation meet their person while in college. And after that, it's kind of like, well, it's time to get married, start having babies. Like I have peers who have like 3 kids, and I'm like, how the fuck do you have 3 kids? It's a mindfuck for me.
I mean, my sister, yeah, she met her husband in college and they got married right afterwards. So yeah, I think the age has risen up in the developed world, but right, early 20s physically is a great. She's very happy that they're empty nesters now and they're not that old because they had their children young.
Early.
And he's a good dude. They've been 25 years together now. So sure.
But why did you think you were too young for marriage?
I don't know that I guess I was saying I'm too young because I was at the time thinking I'll do it later in a few years. I wanted to get a graduate degree. And the reason for that was because my undergraduate degree at Berkeley was in molecular biology, and the only thing I was qualified to do was like bench research science.
Okay.
When you have that degree, that's the skill you have. I did it for not quite 2 years at this place in Marin County, California, and I was very bad at it, and I did not like it. I told you, I told her I killed a lot of mice. That's what I did, and I hated it.
Yay!
Yeah, it sucked. It really sucked, and I was alone like all day with like, you know, mice and equipment, and I just
not ideal. Not
yeah,
fulfilling.
and so I had to pivot to be qualified to do anything else. So I did an MBA, and then the rest is history. But I wanted to do that MBA because had I married, his name was John, he was a physician, he could have nepotism gotten me a job, but I would have been a bench research scientist near the hospital where he worked. And I didn't want to do that. I probably wouldn't have done that for long. He wanted kids. He was 11 years older than me. So he wanted kids like now. So I probably wouldn't have worked much and then been a mom.
Yeah.
And it would have been perfect. I would have been near my parents, and maybe I should have. I mean, he did just fine. He married a doctor who was younger than me. He did just fine without old me. But I just wanted to do other things. I did want to fly planes like my grandpa. I did want to get an MBA. I wanted to like make my own money. Certainly the way I went about it, which I did not plan at the time, was not the greatest way. I had other thoughts of how that would go. As they say, man plans, God laughs, right?
All the time.
But to be married to an older man at 24 and be a doctor's wife, yeah, it would have been perfect. Maybe I didn't want perfect. Maybe it wasn't about the age. Maybe it was about the timing. Maybe if I had met him 5 years later.
Maybe it would have been perfect.
I have a fierce independent streak.
What's your sign? Can I ask you?
I'm a Capricorn.
Of course. It makes so much sense. My daughter's a Capricorn.
Yeah?
Like, I just know Capricorns are being like, so when they goal oriented, like
I like to work.
Want something, yeah. They work for it.
And maybe I don't always want the easy way. Not that that would have been easy. And maybe I was worried I wouldn't be a good mother because that's the ultimate job. And it's so scary. And maybe I was afraid to. My sister says children, it's like watching your heart walk around outside your body.
Literally, it is. Like, I can attest to that.
I can't even imagine loving something that much. I can't even handle having a dog. It's so difficult when they die, and that's not even a human.
Yeah.
Like, maybe I was afraid. Honestly, maybe I was afraid. And I did think I would do it later, and then the baseball one that I miscarried and everything fell apart. I would have married him. We tried. Fell apart.
I think, as women, sometimes we are so focused on like what we want to do for ourselves. And because for a while I found myself saying like, oh, I don't want to settle down in a relationship until I like accomplish this for myself and I accomplish that for myself. And I think the older I got, it was like, well, why do I need to do this by myself if I have a man who's willing to do it with me? And sometimes we probably are so, like you said, hell bent on like being independent and getting it on your own that you kind of missed out on the opportunity per se. To each is different.
Yeah.
But that's just a thought that just like popped into my head where
I
it's
know.
like,
Why didn't I tell him I want to marry you and do my MBA? I think he made it pretty clear he wanted kids like right now, and I was worried. Well, also, so there's TMI about my life, but my mother, when I was 11, she came into my room. My father and her were fighting, and my mother didn't work. My father made all the money and provided and did a good job at it. But she came in my room and she said, if I had money right now, I would leave your father. He was cheating. She couldn't. And she said, if I leave, nobody's going to pay for this big house. Nobody's going to pay for your guys' college. Me and my sister will live in a small apartment, and I'll be fighting with lawyers for whatever I can get. Yeah. And so I don't know why she put that on us, because it felt like it was our fault that
he left.
My father was older than my mother. She dropped out of grad school because he wanted kids. I think I thought I would repeat the same pattern, and I didn't want to be her because I remember her being unhappy because she had no money of her own. She couldn't leave. And now my parents have been married 55 years. They're totally happy. It was just a big fight. But that affected me, seeing her. He used to joke about giving my mother an allowance like she was another child, like he had 3 children instead of 2 daughters and a wife. And it seemed like her marrying and being financially dependent, which all women were for all of human history, stunted her development. And she never got to live her dreams. She made her choices, but I just was worried I would end up like that.
Got that.
But you're right. It wasn't necessarily going to be so.
Yeah.
I think I was afraid it would be.
And I definitely understand that point of view. Sometimes when you see things growing up, you kind of tend to either mirror that behavior or want the exact opposite of that.
Totally.
And in that case, that makes a lot of sense.
My sister has a major business. She's very successful, and her husband's a complete partner, and they have kids. I mean, they do it all, and he's a good dude. And so you're right. It's entirely possible. I'm not sure why I didn't think it would be. Maybe I just torpedoed it. I don't know.
I think you were scared.
Yes,
and just
probably
like running
true.
away from it. And as much as you wanted the MBA, and it was still attainable with him, but again, as you said, he wanted kids. So in the forefront of your mind, it's like, well, am I ever really going to achieve this? Because you could be on the path to it, and then boom, you're pregnant, and then everything changes.
I wanted to live in bigger cities. I wanted to live in LA and then New York, not this small town he lived in. I also saw my sister's labor and delivery. Don't recommend going to those. Shouldn't have seen that.
I agree.
I mean, obviously she's fine, but she was at the other end of the curtain. I shouldn't have been standing where I was. But yeah, I don't know. And truly, I thought I would end up doing both, and then life happened. And so,
do you ever have any regrets about not like marrying and having children, or you?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe I probably would have loved it. Everyone loves the children they have. I froze eggs at 31.
Most times.
Yeah. There's a few who I don't meet very many people who regret having children, but it does exist. Yeah. No, I mean, I froze eggs at 31. I suppose they've been frozen a long time now. I suppose I still could. Like when you freeze vegetables for too long and they got that frost on them, they're probably no good anymore. But my last big relationship of several years, he had children that I knew. They're amazing young ladies. So I've had the opportunity to know children that weren't mine biologically. But yeah, next lifetime, I'd like to join that sorority. I'd like to be a mom and a wife and see what that's like if I get another chance to go around.
I feel you. I do want to ask you, because you've modeled, right? How long did you model for?
I
You
mean,
still do it,
I still
yeah.
get called every week. It turns out they like good looking old ladies.
There's a market for everything.
No,
you
it
know?
changes. It becomes like l'officiel and Elle and glamour. And that's great. They cover you up more. You don't have to diet as much. It's great. But yeah, I did all the Playboy I was inside GQ, not on the cover, inside Sports Illustrated, not on the cover, but lots of Playboys. They aren't nude anymore, folks. They're
Yeah.
close. I didn't wear a lot of clothes, but bikini, lingerie stuff. FHM when I was in my 20s and 30s. And been on a couple international L's. L'officiel. I mean, my DMs are full of requests modeling. If I had more time, I could model every day.
Yeah.
There's no limit on it. It just changes what sort you do.
I see. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I do want to ask you, like, what are some of the advantages and disadvantages of being an older model?
So you have to be honest with yourself, so once in a while, like FHM or Maxim or something will put like a cougary old lady like Jennifer Aniston or somebody on. But that's that very much niche thing. Like, look at this lady who's old but hot. And they don't do it every issue because it doesn't sell. You do have to be honest. Those products like lingerie and things are typically not calling when you're older. It requires, your skin gets different and too much Photoshop, I guess, too much post-production. And then certainly in this town, the editorial runway is for very young and very tall.
Yeah.
I was never that tall. I was never that thin. So I never did any of that.
The most current.
Yeah, I'm too short and now too old. And also facially, you have to be so perfect. I was never in the editorial world. But now, interestingly about being older, if you've established a brand, a lot of times they want your following. And if you look at my algorithm, a lot of like middle-aged women follow me, and that's who they want to sell neck cream to. So
preventative.
Yeah, they want your audience. So I think we've democratized with social media. We've democratized everything, and everybody has a little bit of a market niche now. Yeah. So perhaps it's not as big as when you're 18 and 6 feet tall and on the runway and you're Gigi Hadid or whoever. Some of them are eternal. Naomi Campbell could be 140 and she's still going to be perfect, but we don't all win the genetic lottery like that lady. Yeah. J-Lo, these women who are just winning. But if you have a small niche, you can still cobble together a career. So it's fine to be older. And
you think there's like more confidence that comes with it?
I think you learn to not give a shit because aging is something first you fight and then you realize you can't fight. And there's only one way not to age. I don't want to do that yet.
Which is
die.
Yeah.
So I like being here. It's super fun. So and age comes for all of us, and some parts of it are wonderful. The not giving a shit part is amazing.
Yeah.
And
I think that's the best part. Honestly.
Yeah, it's great. And actually authenticity people like. Yes, they like beautiful, but sometimes they don't need or want perfect.
That's true.
So yeah, as long as they still call, I'm happy to do it. And if and when they no longer do, then that's a wrap and do something else. That's okay.
No. I think when I think about like just women in general, like again, stigmas, like so much pressure to age gracefully, or like we don't want to age at all, some of us, right? And I think I've been experiencing more women who are embracing that journey, right? And realizing, as you said, we can't prevent it. It's a part of history. It's just what happens.
Yeah.
You can do like Botox every week. You're still going to age, right? And so it's nice to see women like claiming it instead of maybe trying to deny it or run from it.
Well, beauty's very powerful. Yeah, you go to the old King Cole bar. If you're 21 and gorgeous, the billionaire is going to talk to you first. That's true. Beauty is very powerful. And so it is important to have other things to offer the world, invest in your mind, invest in your connections. It's actually, even when you are young and perfect looking, being beautiful is not enough.
No, that's true.
If you're a garbage person, it's not going to get you that far.
That's true.
Even, I lived in Hollywood. The most beautiful faces were not always the ones that got the job. The person who did the work, was honest, had integrity. That's who gets the job, because everything's competitive. And so,
It's a rude awakening for some. Some people are
Yeah.
so taught to rely on their beauty for privilege. And so sometimes when they're rejected for maybe the less attractive in their head, that might be a hard pill to swallow.
Sure. Well, it's one quiver in your arrow is beauty, and it certainly is a big one. It's like being rich, but much like being rich, it's not everything,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So sometimes the person who's an 8.5, they have a better personality, more integrity. They show up on time, they do the work. And so, yeah, I mean, right. You have to be okay with what life has given you rather than what you, and being young is literally impossible to hold on to.
Yeah.
So you may as well get comfy with it and embrace all the other things that you can embrace because, like you said, fighting it is quite literally impossible.
Yeah.
So, but you can look good, eat healthy, get your sleep,
That part, like the maintenance. You know what
Yes.
I mean? Like take care of yourself and
Mm.
you won't worry about aging.
Sunscreen.
You can grace.
No, that's like a thing old people say. There's a reason we say it. Sunscreen.
Anything you want to leave us with? Any final thoughts?
No, just thanks for watching and thanks for giving me a voice. I think it's a big wide world and the more we can understand each other's different lifestyles, I think that really makes for a better place.
Yeah. I like that way. I like what you just said with understanding.
Trying.
Like screening you out, oh my gosh, she's so smart. She knows so much about so much. Like I like that. Thank you for joining me. Do you want to share your social media where they can find you?
Oh, sure. If you care, I'm Amy Taylor NYC. All over, you can find me. I'm out there.
Hey, and honesties, I shall see you all next week. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and tell a friend to tell a friend to tune into Honesty the podcast. Until next time, bye.